Welcome to the NFL Show on the Grizzly True Sports Network. The NFL Show is brought to you by BetNow.eu. For a cashback bonus on your first deposit, make sure you go to BetNow.eu and use the promo code TRUTH100. I am your host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. Anthony Cervino can't be with me today. I don't know why, but Anthony is not responding to my texting calls, so I hope everything's all right there, and Anthony will be back with us tomorrow. Last night, the Baltimore Ravens destroyed the Los Angeles Rams. And destroyed is probably an understatement. And if we've learned anything, it's that Lamar Jackson right now is untouchable. I don't even know. There's no words to describe what he and John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens have turned this team into. This is a team I thought would win the AFC North at the start of the season, but that's because the rest of the AFC North I expected to be terrible. I thought the Ravens would win somewhere between 8 and 10 games and win the division and be out of the playoffs quick. But now, from what we saw last night, the Baltimore Ravens may be the favorite to at least go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. Lamar Jackson was untouchable last night. He ramshacked the LA defense, which was ranked 5th in stopping the run entering last night. From the opening snap, they were led by Jackson in a shot out of a cannon run game paced by a mauling Mark Ingram, who accounted for 111 yards. Baltimore opened the proceedings with 6 straight runs down the throat of Aaron Donald's Rams and never let up. The Ravens broke off 6 touchdown drives on their first 6 possessions against LA, becoming the first team to do so since the 2008 New Orleans Saints. 5 of the touchdowns came via Jackson's arm, the 5 scores accounting for 1/3 of his 15 completions. He only threw the ball 20 times. So this is basically what they did with those first 6 plays where they ran the ball right at the Rams is they asserted their dominance. And that's kind of throwback football to the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that's what you got to love about this team, because we live in an era now where everybody wants to play what I call, if you've heard the show before, PlayStation football. And that's fine. But eventually, the one thing that is always constant in the NFL is the team that hits the hardest usually wins the game. And the Baltimore Ravens definitely hit the hardest. They ran the ball all night long, ran down their throats, and by the time Jackson had thrown his last TD of the night, he had tossed 9 touchdowns in his last 44 attempts. That's like one in every less than 5 attempt. Lamar finished Monday night with 169 passing yards, 95 rushing yards, and likely no more detractors. And I was one of those detractors, and I was wrong. And it's not that I didn't think he could do something like this. I didn't think that there was an NFL team that would allow him to do this. And what I mean by that is most teams have a tendency to try to force the quarterback to play they want them to play. And with John Harbaugh,
deals with morons.
Really? We're live right now on the air,
I feel like
Anthony.
he fucking deals with idiots.
Anthony, we're live right now.
What's that? What?
We're live right now.
We can't. Oh.
I'd already started the
live
show.
right
You were 15 minutes late, but now we know you're dealing with effing morons. So I want to welcome to the show Anthony Cervino from the FF Face-Off. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great.
It sounds like you're having about as good a day as Sean McVay.
I did not realize we were live. I'm sorry about that. This is what happens when you get a shoddy real estate agent.
Well, did you want to give his name, number, address, and phone number right now?
Not right now.
Okay. But as like I was talking about, Anthony, the thing that's the most impressive to me, it wasn't that I thought Lamar Jackson couldn't do this. It's the fact that I didn't think that there would be an NFL coach that would be willing to build an offense around what Lamar Jackson can do.
Yeah, the Ravens are doing something I feel like completely different than what we've seen in the past. I mean, Lamar Jackson he's either broken or about to shatter, the passing and rushing records of Michael Vick and RG3. You talk about John Harbaugh kind of adapting his whole offensive system, his whole team around Lamar Jackson and trusting him. This was a team that had Joe Flacco under center for, right around 10 years.
Yeah,
and within a year, it's a night and day change.
Yeah, because I think you saw Lamar Jackson struggle in a lot of instances last year because that team was built for Joe Flacco, and in less than a year's time, this team has been reworked to fit what Lamar Jackson does.
Yeah, and down to the running back that they brought in Mark Ingram. Down to the receivers and the tight ends that they put around. Because when you're running as much as they do, they drafted a Hayden Hurst and Mark Andrews, who were both in their second year, and Nick Boyle's one of the better blocking tight ends in the league. And then they give him a speed receiver on the outside in the first-round pick, Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, and if you look at the running backs, it's not just Mark Ingram, because you got Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, who also played all right last night, and those two guys are completely opposites of each other when they run the ball. And then you give him to Marquise Brown as a deep threat. You give him Mark Andrews at tight end. They got Willie Snead. I mean, this team right now, has to be are they the favorite to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC?
They have to be. I mean, look at who they're beating. They dismantled the New England Patriots. They dismantled the Rams. So in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, the Baltimore Ravens dismantled both the AFC and NFC representative of the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah,
and I'll say it again, dismantled.
Yeah, and the thing is this. I thought the Ravens would win the game when we picked it yesterday, but I thought it would be like 27-13. I didn't think it would be 45-6. And there's a lot of
Rams. I thought the Rams at home, they looked pretty good against they looked like they could turn it around, but this is a testament to the Ravens more so than the Rams, I think.
No, I think it's a testament to the Rams too. I think the Rams are done. I think they've been done since the end of last year. I think Jared Goff with his 2 interceptions, I don't think he's a whole hell of a lot better than Mitch Trubisky. And I think that we have seen the peak of the Sean McVay era, and that was in the NFC Championship game last year. Because when you look at this, Todd Gurley 6 carries for 22 yards. Brandon Cooks ran the ball once. Malcolm Brown ran the ball once. Jared Goff ran the ball once. They ran the ball 10 times for 23 yards.
Yeah, and that just goes back to the old NFL narrative. If you can't run and you're playing from behind, the defense is just going to pin their ears back and send pressure because they know what you're going to do. You're very one-dimensional and predictable at that point.
Yeah, and the other thing that stands out to me with the Ravens, it may not even be so much the offense, but a month ago, I thought the Ravens couldn't do this because I thought defensively they weren't good enough to do this, and that defense has gotten better quickly.
I've said this before. I've said it on my show. If the Ravens, and it looks like they have a very strong shot, if they make a run to the Super Bowl, yes, Lamar Jackson's going to get 90% of the credit, but the MVP of the team, the guy who really made it all come together on defense is Marcus Peters.
Yeah, Marcus Peters is a huge deal here. And when you look at the Rams, I still, and you told me I was crazy, we argued about this, Jalen Ramsey is not a good signing for anybody because I still think he's a me guy, and it's hard to make those guys translate on a team. And you look at Wade Phillips' defense last year, they bring in the Weddle, they bring in Ramsey, and they've actually gotten worse because sometimes just adding star players doesn't really help you.
Well, the big problem there, and I like Jalen Ramsey a lot, I think he's one of the better corners in the league. Yes, he has a big mouth, and he's probably a me guy. But the bigger issue for the Rams, which is why we probably did see the peak of the Sean McVay era, is the fact, and I think I've said this on the show a week or two ago, looking at the contracts, they have a good chunk of their cap to 5 or 6 players. Aaron Donald, Goff, Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, even Andrew Whitworth is, he's the second highest paid player on the team, and they'll move on from him this offseason. And now you have to pay Jalen Ramsey, and you basically gave him a blank check.
Yeah, and you'd be better to get rid of him.
So you have no depth in the middle of your team. So once you start suffering injuries and you need somebody to step up, you're playing with practice squad guys who would be practice squad guys on other teams.
Yeah, and right now the Rams look destined to not be playing into January. They're 6-5. They are 2 games behind the Vikings in the wild card. They're 4 games behind the 49ers in their division. And after being blown out by a Super Bowl contender in Baltimore, I mean, you look at the rest of their schedule. They play against San Francisco, Seattle, Dallas, which should be a win because they suck. And they play a sneaky Arizona team twice. So, I mean, it's possible they could lose all of those games, but I would say they don't win any more than 2 or 3 games.
I don't disagree with that.
Because
the Cardinals, they're a very good team.
I think the Cardinals,
I think they're going to be a very good team moving forward. I think they're becoming a good team. They just don't have a lot of talent, and the talent they do have is very young.
Yeah, and if you look at this, they're probably going to lose to San Francisco, Seattle, and Dallas. Maybe they can get a split with Arizona, but that's a 7-9 record. Even if you pull one upset, you win both Arizona games, you're 8-8. So their season is done. And Baltimore, on the other hand, is on pace for a first-round bye and to be maybe the greatest running team in the history of the NFL.
Isn't it crazy that this is a passing league that the Baltimore Ravens are doing this in? This is catered to the pass, and John Harbaugh did a complete 180 and is going the other way.
Yeah, but the thing is this, when we look back at it, though, the teams that play this way are usually deep into the playoffs, though.
Right, because once it gets cold, it becomes harder to pass the football.
Well, I still think this. You got PlayStation coaches now, but football, and I've said this a million times, that the one thing that will usually tell you who wins the game is 90% of the time, the team that is physically dominant, that out-hits the other team, is going to win the game.
And that's exactly how the Ravens play football. They, they'll hit you in the mouth. They, set the tone early, and all of a sudden you blink and they're up 21-0 in the first quarter.
Yeah, and if you look at it, it's the same way the Patriots play. They play defense, they run the ball. The Bills play the same way. Those may be the 3 best teams in the AFC right now. And the Kansas City Chiefs are a perfect example of a PlayStation team that when they play teams like that, they lose to the Colts. I mean, they've lost to – who was it they lost to a couple weeks ago? Was it the Bills? It wasn't the Bills, was it?
Oh,
Tennessee. The Titans. If you look at the AFC, I think people are starting to underrate the AFC just because of the way those top 4 teams play. Because the way those top 4 teams play, I mean, that's how you should be playing to win a Super Bowl. If you look at the Saints, when their defense is healthy, they're a defensive team that runs the ball with Alvin Kamara. Now, they got Drew Brees, but still, they run the ball. They're a physical team when healthy. Minnesota is a physical team when healthy. A team like Green Bay, not a physical team. And I think when we look at it, I think Minnesota ends up winning the NFC North also. So there may be a small amount of teams that play football that way, but the majority of those teams are going to be in the playoffs, Anthony.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something if Minnesota ends up winning the division?
Yeah, I think they will. I picked it at the start of the year, so I'm hoping for it. San Francisco. San Francisco plays defense, and they run the ball. And I think the game of the year right now has to be coming up, San Francisco against Baltimore, which I think is going to be an absolutely great game.
That's a potential preview of the Super Bowl.
Yeah. It
And
most definitely
I wouldn't
is.
mind that one bit.
I would. I don't like Baltimore just because I'm a Bengals fan. I really like John Harbaugh, and if it wasn't for the fact they were in the Bengals division, I would probably be okay with them. But I want to see the Patriots go again. Because this is the thing now. The Patriots are a team sitting there with Bill Belichick, and maybe the two greatest offenses I ever saw, Bill Belichick beat in Super Bowls. You know,
Um,
the 90 Bills and the greatest show on turf Rams.
yeah. But
And
Harbaugh has won in Foxborough, right? Isn't that how we got to their first Super Bowl? They had to go through the
I
Patriots in
know they got to
Foxborough.
one of them that way and really they could have won twice in Foxborough because they had the shanked short field goal. I forget. I think it was like 2013. Remember, they
Yeah.
had like a 32-yard or 28-yard field goal that was missed.
Now,
So I
this
think that sets up a great playoff matchup. I think you're getting an AFC Championship game of New England against Baltimore, and can Bill Belichick figure out a way to stop this offense? Because to tell you the truth, I don't know if it's stoppable because normally what you would do against a team like this is have your ends set an edge. Don't rush your defensive tackles. Keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket. You spy him with a linebacker, and you force him to throw the ball to beat you. But the problem with that is, even when you do that with this guy, Lamar Jackson will still get away from you. I mean, he's the most amazing scrambling quarterback I've ever seen.
now, you mentioned the Chiefs a little bit earlier. Lamar Jackson's 0-2 against Kansas City. For what that's worth, I don't know at this point because they did lose to the Chiefs before Marcus Peters, who really did change that defense. So who knows what will happen if they play again in the playoffs.
Well, and it doesn't take
Lamar Jackson,
much to change that game because Lamar Jackson still put up, 28 points in that game? And that was before the offense was really clicking.
now, um, remember last year in the playoffs, and, again, a different team that were more built towards Joe Flacco. The Ravens were shut down by the Chargers in their second meeting. Who was the biggest challenge to Baltimore that's not New England? Because, of course, you're going to say, the obvious answer is the Patriots and Belichick getting them for the second time this season. But aside from New England, is there anybody else?
I got one for you. Tennessee.
That's where I think I was going to.
Because they can run the ball just like Baltimore can. So that's going to be basically a slugfest in the middle of the field. And it's just according whether Tennessee can control Lamar Jackson. And on Tennessee's side, it's whether Ryan Tannehill can make a big play or two, an explosive play or two to get them in the end zone. And then, I mean, Houston, I don't think they're really a danger, other than the fact that I think Deshaun Watson's special and could just go off and score with them. But I think Tennessee is a team more built to be able to battle Baltimore than what Houston is.
Yeah, well, they have a better defense.
That's what I mean. That I just think that Houston plays smash mouth football, or not Houston, but Tennessee plays smash mouth football. I don't think it's conducive to playing like the Chiefs do and beating a team like the Ravens in the playoffs because you don't know what weather you're going to get, and it only takes one or two tipped balls here or there that may not even be bad passes to cause turnovers. So if Lamar Jackson's only throwing the ball 20 times a game, but throwing 2 or 3 touchdowns, and everybody else is running the way they are, I mean, last year they didn't have near the offensive line that they have right now either. Because that offensive line has gotten a lot better also.
I'm really excited about this upcoming game between the 49ers and the Ravens.
Yeah, because these are the two best teams.
They're both blowing out the best teams in their conference.
Yeah, they're destroying them.
This is, what do they say in, the 80s, Gorilla Monsoon, WrestleMania 3 with Andre and Hulk Hogan. It's the irresistible force versus the immovable object. That's what we're getting here.
Yeah, that's not on a Sunday or Monday night, is it?
What's that?
The 49ers and Ravens?
It should be. It's not.
definitely should be, because that is the game of the century right now. I mean, that's the game I really want to see. So hopefully we'll all be able to see it. Too bad it's not.
Well, as of right now, I'm looking at it's a 1:00 game unless it's flexed out. It's a 1:00 on Fox.
Is that this weekend?
12-1.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
this weekend. Man, you know what I'm going to get? I'm going to get the Bengals playing somebody, and they're not going to give me a second game. Really I really hate Mike Brown.
You got Andy Dalton back.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We might as well talk about it now, as the Bengals have announced that Andy Dalton's going to be the starting quarterback again. So I guess that means that the Bengals are not trying to get the number 1 pick.
If I'm Andy Dalton, I would go
tell
on
him to kiss my ass.
I would go on the A.J. Green injury plan for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I got a high ankle sprain, guys. I'm probably not going to be available to like 5 years from now. But if I was Andy Dalton, I'd tell him to kiss my ass. Because the bad thing is this: if they're trying to win games, if they wouldn't have sat him, I think the Bengals would have beat the Raiders and the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, they have been playing better, and a lot of that is Joe Mixon.
Well, I think the defense has been playing better. Mixon's ran a little bit better, but when you're throwing for 110 yards a game and it's not Pee Wee football, you've got issues.
They're getting. I don't know. You put Andy Dalton back out there. I do think with Dalton back out there, we could see A.J. Green, and John Ross is supposed to come back. But what does it even matter?
I don't think you'll see A.J. Green.
Draft pick?
Yeah, I would want the number 1 pick for Joe Burrow, but the question is this: if Mike Brown had any sense and he'd stop listening to dumbass Cincinnati Bengals fans, he would just play Andy Dalton, draft Chase Young, and then he'd go out and get some offensive linemen and some linebackers and try to make this a playoff team next year. Because it's been proven, if there's enough talent around him, Andy Dalton can get you to the playoffs.
I agree.
So
I said this on my show last night. What if, we're talking about the Steelers and they have a decision to make at quarterback and kind of playing fantasy GM? What's the best way? If you're Andy Dalton and you could, let's say they release you, I don't know if they will. If you put Andy Dalton on this Pittsburgh Steelers team, they're a contender.
Yeah, but also if you put him on the Chicago Bears, they're a contender.
Yeah, but if you're Dalton, wouldn't you rather go to Pittsburgh and stick it up Mike Brown's ass? And I'm just playing fantasy football here with that tape.
Of course you would. I mean, but if you're Andy Dalton and you look at Khalil Mack and that defense in Chicago, if you got an offense with it, which team can you win with quicker?
I think Pittsburgh.
I would think Pittsburgh just because of the division they're in. You may not be able to beat up Baltimore, but you can win 10 games and make the playoffs.
They have Joe Hayden, Minka Fitzpatrick, T.J. Watt. I mean, they have some quality upside defensive pieces, and then you got to factor in their pieces on offense. They always have a good line. They can run the ball no matter who's back there. You have Juju Smith-Schuster, a couple. I think Pittsburgh has more talent than Chicago. Maybe not by a lot.
Well, if I'm Andy Dalton, I would rather go to Pittsburgh just to stick it up Mike Brown's ass.
Right.
That would be the way I would look at it. And as a Bengals fan, I might even cheer for the Steelers when they come to Cincinnati with Andy Dalton at quarterback. And since we're talking about the Steelers and quarterbacks, they're making a change again in Week 13. Coach Mike Tomlin announced Tuesday that undrafted rookie Devlin Hodges will start at quarterback Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. Good move or bad move, Anthony?
I would say good move because I think we've seen the best of Mason Rudolph. And that was a couple of weeks ago where he was giving you right around 200 yards and a touchdown or two a game. Whatever happened, he regressed, and he's not the same guy. And I think maybe he's a game manager at best. Devlin Hodges is the next man up. Let's see what you got.
I think at best Mason Rudolph is a starting quarterback in the XFL. Devlin Hodges, I don't know much about him except for what I saw in college, and I would go with Devlin Hodges.
You don't even know his name. We don't even know his
No, it's because I'm reading the NFL news and there's a few Thomases in here. I almost called him Devlin James because of Derwin James, and he's set to return off of IR, but that's a little bit too late, I think, Anthony.
Yeah, too little, too late.
Yeah. And it's a shame. I like Phillip Rivers, but he looked old. The Philadelphia Eagles, wide receiver Jordan Matthews, has been cut. What'd you think about that, Anthony?
I mean, this is like the third or fourth team that he's been released from this year. I think he was with New England at one point, or maybe that was last year. I know the 49ers released him twice. The Eagles are hurting at receiver, and if you can't cut it there right now, then you're probably done.
All right, right now we get the NFL Power Rankings by the NFL Network or NFL.com. Tell me if you agree with this. Number 1, the 49ers. Number 2, the Ravens. In agreement so far?
I'd put Baltimore up top.
I would go with San Francisco, even though I think Baltimore may win since they're at home this week. I think San Francisco's, that defense is really damn good. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo is vastly underrated. I think he's better than what people give him credit for.
See, you're not. I feel like you're underselling the Ravens' defense a little bit.
No, I'm not. What I'm doing is this. The difference in the two here is I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a lot better than what people think. Both teams run the ball very well. Both teams play defense very well. But I don't think there's a defensive front in the NFL that even gets close to what the San Francisco 49ers have.
In the past 5, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, in the past 6 games, since October 13th, it's a 6-game win streak for the Baltimore Ravens. They've given up fewer than 20 points in every game. And they only gave up 20 once. And in the past 2 games against the Rams and Texans, fewer than 7 points.
Yeah. I didn't disagree. I think they're the 2 best defenses in football. I think the 49ers have the advantage up front. I think that the Ravens have the advantage in the back end.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you give me a choice between those two, I will normally take the team with the advantage up front. So, number 3, the New England Patriots. Number 4, the Seattle Seahawks. You still in agreement there?
Yeah, I think so.
I think they're pretty equal. 5, the Saints. 6, the Vikings.
5, the Saints. 6, the Vikings. I think that's fair, but I think Minnesota, you can make a case to put them ahead of New Orleans right now.
Oh, I think you can too. But I also think you can make the case that the Super Bowl winner will come out of those top 6 teams. And then we go 7 Green Bay, 8 Kansas City, 9 the Texans, 10 the Bills.
So who are those last 4? I know Buffalo.
Green Bay at 7, which I think is too high. 8 Kansas City, 9 the Texans, 10 the Bills.
I would I think maybe I like Buffalo a little bit more than all of those teams right now. And maybe it's because they left a bad taste in my mouth recently. With the Texans recently got blown out by Baltimore.
Yeah, they've all had rough times over the last few weeks.
But I don't know. I think Buffalo, you got to put them at least to 8.
Number 11, Dallas. I think that's too high because I think number 12, Tennessee, should be above Dallas. They get the Raiders at 13, which will tell you how bad the NFL is that they're in the top half. 14, the Steelers. 15, the Rams. Dude, This league is horrible.
It's bad. You know what? You're right.
I mean, because once I get past 10, I don't even know. Hell, once I get past 6, I don't think there's much here. I mean, Green Bay, you'd give an outside shot because they got Rodgers. The Chiefs, you'd give a shot because they got Mahomes. The Texans, you get a shot because of Watson. The Bills, they ain't got no shot. The Cowboys, no offense, they ain't got no shot. The Titans at 12. I think the Titans, even though they're 6-5, I would put the Titans. I'd put the Titans at number 7 right now.
I don't know about that. I can't put them ahead of Buffalo.
Why not?
I think Buffalo has a better defense. But then on the other hand, I think the Titans have a better running game.
And they have a better quarterback.
Maybe. I like I would put Josh Allen and Tannehill with the way Tannehill's playing right now right near each other.
Well, I've seen Ryan Tannehill take a team to the playoffs. But this 13 Raiders, they just lost 34-3. The 14 Steelers, they looked about like the damn Bengals the other day.
Yes, and that's how you're right. That's how you know the NFL might not be in the best position right now. When the Steelers, who I could have, they look like I don't even know what kind of team they looked like the other day.
Yeah, 15 the Rams. We know what they look like. I don't know how they're that high. 16's the Colts, 17's the Browns, 18's the Panthers, 19's the Chargers, 20 is Philadelphia, 21 is Chicago. Are there any teams in that group that I just read off that you think could get their crap together and make a run and win a playoff game?
The Dallas Cowboys.
They're not one of the teams I just read off, but all right. I would think the Philadelphia Eagles because they're going to win the NFC East.
I'm sure when we're done with this, the NFL told the Cowboys we botched that call. That sucks.
Who cares? It happens to a team every week.
That sucks. That sucks to wake up to as a Cowboys fan.
But it happens every week to a team. Every week. There's not a week goes by. And there was probably 3 games that were affected by calls that I saw this last weekend. So the sad thing is they'll just it would be better. I remember Sam Weish, the old Bengals coach. He said, they used to get a call or they'd get a letter from the NFL every Monday or Tuesday morning apologizing for the bad calls made, and then they would be listed. And he said, it got to the point where I would rather they not even bring it up. Because the officiating is terrible in the NFL. And, I mean, it gets to the point where, after a while, it's your own damn fault for letting the game be close. Because the officials can take it away because they're incompetent. I mean, I forget which game it was, but I saw a personal foul called on a hit on a quarterback that was nowhere near a personal foul. It was just a normal tackle. And they flagged it and cost them 15 yards, gave the other team a first down. And I don't know why they're not full-time officials. And I don't know why, like the tripping call. Once again, I'll bring it up. The NHL has a guy sit up top watching the game on the booth. If he sees an egregious error that is made, he will stop the game immediately and they will change the call. It doesn't have to be an instant replay thing. That tripping call should have been something where as soon as you saw it on a replay, it's not, you call down and you change it.
I'm looking at, Dallas's losses, and 4 out of their 5 losses were by fewer than 4 points. So one possession games.
You know what I can tell you that is?
That's a testament on Jason Garrett. Mike.
Yes. Because, it's just like Opie Taylor with the Cincinnati Bengals. Hell, over half their games have been lost by less than a touchdown. That's coaching. And, that's most NFL teams with a bad record. You can look at them and find over half their losses by less than a touchdown. And people will say, well, my team is only 2-10, but we lost 7 games by less than 5 points. And that's the difference between being a crappy team in the NFL and being a good team. Good teams win those games. bad teams lose those games. It's just the way it is.
It's just so disheartening. I don't know what show. It might have been on the Skip Bayless show with, the Undisputed show, or I might have saw it on Twitter. And the difference, the Cowboys, they say the Cowboys have a 9-2, personnel with their players and 2-9 coaching, which equates to their record right now at 6-5.
And I agree completely. Yeah.
That was brilliant.
I don't put it like this.
Or Undisputed, but it was brilliant.
With a really good coach, I still don't think they're the best team in the NFC, but they would have already run away with the NFC East, and they would have been at least in a divisional playoff game. And with their coaching, no matter how much talent they got, the best they're ever going to do is a divisional playoff game. And that's sad, even though I don't like them and I like to give you shit about it. I know what it's like to have a team with poor ownership, and it sucks. And that's what it is. I don't know why you like Jerry Jones, because Jerry Jones caused all this.
I don't know. I like Jerry. I like his passion. I really do.
Really? That's not passion. It's stupidity.
But you know what?
It's not passion.
But passion brings out stupidity. Isn't there a Bengals fan who was sleeping, who was living on his roof until they win a game?
Actually, it's the guy that it's called. We could probably get him on the show because my daughter actually works at the restaurant that he's on top of. He is the owner of like the Hog Trough Cafe in Milan, Indiana. We could probably get him on the show if you want.
I would have see. I see. That's passion. That's why you don't.
No,
get this
that's not
sports.
passion. That's trying to get more business to your place. And this is the thing, though. There is misdirected passion, and there is directed passion. And Jerry Jones, I think, his passion is he thinks he knows more about football than football people do. And
that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, so I think his passion is misdirected. I think he cares a lot, but I think the big problem with Jerry Jones is he cares a lot. And I don't know how much passion it is for the team or for himself. Because when he was winning Super Bowls, he fired that coach because that coach was taking the spotlight from him. So is this passion to make the Dallas Cowboys great, or is this passion for him to get as much attention as he possibly can?
All of the above.
Yeah, which means that's bad.
I do think, Jerry comes from the business world into the football world, whereas his kids, they've grown up in football, and I actually think the future is bright with Stephen Jones, because ever since Stephen Jones has been more involved, and I would say in the past 7-8 years, the Cowboys have drafted better. They've made better decisions with the salary cap. So I do think Stephen Jones, has a bright future as the owner of the Cowboys whenever that happens. I
will tell you this from my experience. The son's usually not as good as the dad. I mean, that's the Mike Brown, Paul Brown thing. How about this? What do you know about Antoine Woods has been ruled out versus the Bills with an MCL? Leighton Vander Esch is not expected to play. Without giving away who you think's gonna win, and we already know who you think's gonna win anyways, because tomorrow we'll preview all the Thanksgiving Day games. But how big an effect is that for this game? I would think it's huge, especially with Vander Esch against a team that likes to run the ball.
Well, there was no Vander Esch against the New England Patriots either, and I think that was a pretty significant loss, and I think him not being out there this week is going to be difficult.
What about Woods? Is he a big loss, or?
Which Woods?
It's Antoine. That's your nose tackle.
Yes.
Because to me, in this game against this team, Antoine Woods may be a bigger loss than Leighton Vander Esch.
Yeah, because of, Sean Lee can hold it down a little bit still.
Yeah, and I don't know that the Cowboys, and let's face it, the Bills are going to be running the ball in between the tackles most of this game. And it's not just, you could have somebody as good as Antoine Woods fill in for him, but you're still dropping off, because if they're going to pound you, Antoine Woods' backup is going to need a backup also, and that's where you get the issues. I think this game, not looking too far ahead, though, I think this is a game where the Cowboys better not fall behind.
Oh, no, absolutely not. They can't.
Because if you fall behind against the Buffalo Bills, you're going to have an issue. But same thing with the Bills. They can't afford to let the Cowboys get up because I don't think they've got the offense to come back.
No, both of those teams are similar to where they're built, and they thrive with the lead.
Yeah. Right now, who would be your NFL MVP?
Lamar.
I think it's a tie.
With who? Him and McCaffrey?
No, Russell Wilson.
It's crazy how, even as involved as I am, I still don't give that guy enough respect, and I respect the hell out of Russell Wilson. But it's like how his name doesn't even come to my mind is it just shows how underrated Russell Wilson is to everybody.
Not to me. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFL, and I've thought that for the last 5 years. And nobody really fights me on it anymore, but most people just look at me and roll their eyes. Maybe it's just because I keep saying it so much. But, I mean, if you look at his stats right now, his team is 9-2. That is not a 9-2 roster. 67% completions, 24 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And I'll make this case. Right now, I think with RG3 as the starting quarterback, the Ravens would still win the AFC North because I think they run their offense in a way RG3 could do. If you take Russell Wilson away from the Seattle Seahawks, they're a 3-win team.
But I'll disagree there. I don't think the Ravens are the Ravens of right now.
No, I don't either. I'm saying I think they could still win the AFC North and win 8, 9, 10 games, maybe 10. Because defensively they're really good, and they are now predicated on running the ball. I think there's a lot more talent for Lamar Jackson to work with than there is Russell Wilson. And I'm not talking about just offensive weapons. I'm talking about with the defense, with the coaching. Pete Carroll's a solid coach, but he's not John Harbaugh. I think Baltimore's offensive line is much better than Seattle's. Baltimore has a much better running game because they got 3 guys. Seattle's got 1. Wide receiver-wise, I think Seattle might be better than them wide receiver-wise now. What do you think?
Better than Baltimore?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I like Tyler Lockett. Josh Gordon adds something to him. But defensively, I don't think there's even a comparison here, which is why I think there's the difference. Because I really think Russell Wilson's rolling with what most quarterbacks would not even sniff the playoffs with in Seattle. And I think it's sad that why do people overlook Russell Wilson? Is it because of his size and he doesn't run his mouth and point at himself and scream, "Look at me" all the time?
Yes.
That's what I figured too. But
no doubt in my mind.
Yeah. There's not much doubt in my mind either because the dude is a damn good player. And if you look at their losses, I mean, they lost to the Saints by 6. They got blown out by the Ravens. Well, it wasn't really a blowout. I think they gave up an offensive touchdown like in the last few minutes to make it a 2-touchdown game. But in the last 4, I mean, they beat San Francisco at San Francisco. They beat Philly at Philly. Those are 2 damn good wins against teams that probably have more talent than they do if you don't count Russell Wilson. Hell, even counting Russell Wilson, San Francisco's got more talent. But, all right.
No, I say Chris Carson has, he's fumbling the ball again. So it's not even, where he has reliable running backs.
Yeah, and this is the amazing thing. The worst record Russell Wilson's ever had in his career was 9-7. If you look at him starting in 2012, 11-5, 13-3, 12-4, 10-6, 10-5-1, 9-7, 10-6, 9-2. I mean, he's 84-38. That's not too bad for a starting NFL quarterback.
No, absolutely not.
And how about this one? 220 touchdowns, 66 interceptions. I mean, he throws an average of 7 or 8 interceptions a year. That's pretty damn good. Where's these rushing yards on here?
Hey, you know what? My 4 years into the league, we don't know how this is gonna, turn out. Dak, his worst record's 9-7.
We know how that's going to turn out. Unless they fire Jason Garrett. Agreed?
Oh, yeah.
And I love Dak Prescott. I've told you that before. I think Dak is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I just don't know that any quarterback playing football is good enough to overcome Jason Garrett. And it's a damn shame because Dak Prescott's not going to get the credit he deserves either.
Troy Aikman, he buried Jason Garrett, and you know that Jerry listens to Troy, so I don't think Garrett has a lot left.
No, and it sounded from listening to, Garrett or from Jerry that he doesn't have a lot of time left either way. And he can't. I mean, he just can't. There's no way. You can't keep this guy around not winning playoff games.
I think they have a better shot right now to pull the plug on Garrett. Marinelli, sure, he has head coaching experience.
What if you lose to Buffalo and you have the extra 4 days?
I'd put Chris Richard as the head coach.
So would I.
And, let Marinelli call the defense. And, can it get worse?
Well,
can't get worse.
The way the Eagles are playing, you may be able to win the division with 8 or 9 wins. But what's the point of making the playoffs if you can't fucking win when you get there? Especially when you've been there repeatedly. I would say that's what I would do. And at the end of the year, no matter what they do, I would fire them all. And then I'd take a blank check to Oklahoma University and I would present it to Lincoln Riley and let him fill in what he wants.
Yeah, I don't disagree there.
But all right. Anything else, Anthony, before we wrap it up?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. I will be live with Mike Hoff later in the day on the FF Face-Off, so pretty excited to talk about everything that happened last week with him.
Yeah, and we also had to show you guys did, I think it was yesterday, with the Week 13 waiver wire. You can go on to gruelingtruth.com right now and find that. Me and Anthony will be back tomorrow for a little Thanksgiving football preview. And let's have Anthony do a little homework. Yeah, I want you to give me your top 5 greatest Thanksgiving Day games in NFL history.
Okay.
It should be easy because half the games are Cowboys games.
I think one of them is going to be that Randy Moss game.
Oh, mine would be the Leon Lett game. I love that because number 1, it was in the snow, and number 2, Cowboys lost.
Oh, Leon Lett, the big cat.
Oh yeah, he was just a walking mistake, wasn't he? He was a damn good football player, though. He's just lucky that Super Bowl wasn't 22-17, and he was behind running for the winning score when he got chased down and a ball knocked away.
Yeah, that was Don Beebe, and then the Thanksgiving Day was against Miami, right?
Yeah.
With the field goal.
Yeah, and Dan Marino. But that's still the coolest Thanksgiving Day game I've ever seen because of the snow.
In Dallas.
It doesn't matter where it's at. I just like snow football games.
No, I'm just saying snow in Dallas.
Yeah, which doesn't happen that often, I don't believe. And especially not that much. Because that was a lot of snow that day, too. And it was a damn good game. That was a good Miami team. That was Dan Marino against Troy Aikman. And then was it 94 when Jason Garrett came in and saved the day against Green Bay?
I think it was 94.
I think it was, too.
There was another game, I think in the Staubach era.
Yeah, Clint Longley, 1974, against the Washington Redskins. The interesting story there was the reason Clint Longley was cut not long after that is because I think the story goes that him and Roger Staubach actually got in a fist fight.
Yep, that was the NFL Network. I saw a special on that.
Yeah. Maybe we get Clint Longley on the show for tomorrow for a Thanksgiving special. He probably won't want to talk about that, though. And really, outside of that one game, what else could we talk to Clint Longley about?
Not much.
That would be about it. I'll tell you another one of my favorites was a Cowboy loss. 1979 when Houston went in there. Houston and Dallas, and that was two great football teams. And Houston beat them 31-24. I think Earl Campbell just destroyed them that day. Man, if you want, I've got that game on a videotape. I can send it to you.
I'm sure I can YouTube it if I want to say it.
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube, actually. But it was a great football game. So, and then I remember 1977 or 78, Miami and St. Louis Cardinals, where Bob Greasy threw for like 400 yards. But I always liked the Cardinals because I thought their helmets were cool. But that was gay, so we're going to wrap the show up with that. Remember, tomorrow, noon, the NFL show. Later on today at 2 o'clock, we'll have the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show with myself and Ken Sterling. Tonight at 9 will be the CFL Grey Cup Wrap-Up Show with myself and Robert Drummond. NFL Pick'em Show tonight at 10 o'clock. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube, Podcast Addict, something called Deezer. You know what Deezer is, Anthony?
Deezer?
Yeah, I think it was Deezer.
No.
I don't know either, but Spreaker sent us something that said that Deezer wanted approval to add our show. So I said, okay, but I don't know what Deezer is. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. For Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.